Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome to your last session of Mental Health Awareness Week 2021. You've seen me all week. I know you're probably sick of the sight of me by now, and you're not here to see me, I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much for joining all of our sessions. It's been a wonderful week. So hopefully you've managed to catch some of those. Hopefully you've managed to catch some of the recordings if you haven't managed to see them live. My name is Henry Saha. If you don't know me, I'm one of your vitality coaches and a specialist in mental health and well-being. I started working in this field about 10 years ago, working with athletes and sports people, and have lectured at university, worked in social care. About 5 years ago, started to work with everyday people on everyday challenges, and that's what brought me to Vitality. That's what brings me in front of you today. But today is not about me. Today we are having a big interview with a man who really, I was trying to write an introduction, and I think that no introduction is needed, and no introduction can do any justice to this man. So we're looking at an English sporting legend, a Rugby World Cup winner, Mr. Jonny Wilkinson. It's such a privilege and such a pleasure to have you here with us today. How are you doing today?
I'm in good form, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Really, really excited about exploring some, well, the biggest topic there is. It's kind of potential. So yeah, that's couldn't be more privileged and thankful for the opportunity.
Brilliant, and thank you. And I totally agree with you. For me, it's the most fascinating topic I think that there is. I don't think there's anything more interesting. And we're talking about mental health. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. So what I really want to do is chuck it out to you. First of all, what is mental health for you? Why is it important? Why is it important that we talk about it?
I think mental health for me it's an infinite sort of exploration into potential, and therefore it's kind of how I see the whole of health and well-being. Very difficult sometimes with health and well-being. It gets kind of contracted into a few categories, whether it's your nutrition, your kind of movement and exercise, whether it's your sleep and restfulness, and whether it's your breathing. Those kind of four things, which are ultimately the key four things, but you lose that understanding that through those is an exploration of everything that's possible. If you look at any kind of the greatest human transformations there's ever been, have taken place through those facets, whether it be yoga and postures and movement in that respect, whether it be the breathing side of it, the focusing on the breathing and using that as a trip into the infinite kind of space of intelligence there is, and also in terms of restfulness and meditation, and even in terms of the amazing healing capacity of what we eat and how it becomes the body. And it's so big, and the mental side is all part of that. It's just the experience of it. It's the experience of life, and trying to open that back up so that it becomes a never-ending exploration instead of a journey of you must do this and must do this in order to feel like this. It's almost like, well, for me, that mental health journey it's an amazing journey into the unknown, but a supported kind of fulfilling journey into the unknown. And it's not so much a case of kind of cope and survive. It's a case of exploring and surviving. It's not about controlling. It's about it's about unfolding into something that's and realizing something that's already there. And it's that's the excitement and passion I had for it.
Wow. So it sounds to me like I think a lot of people separate it out, don't they? And they separate out nutrition, exercise, mental health. Do you see it as all one thing? And people talk about holistic health, but do you think even that, just trying to encompass all of those things is even that provides that separation? Is that something that you
it's sort of an understanding that if you have kind of if you had, like you said, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, whatever, you have them in 4 points. Whatever you're focusing on, you pull in that direction, but you end up suffering the others. The others suffer. You might gain a bit more growth in that area, but you suffer the other side. And it's almost like going to the gym. At the beginning, it's kind of like, wow, but after a while, you start stressing about not doing your session, and you start stressing about and feeling guilty about I haven't done it. And if it's nutrition, then you start stressing about not eating the right thing, and then you're not digesting. If you're limited by the fact that there must be an underpinning this whole journey, there must be a deeper investigation of pure potential in terms of who and how I am on the inside, what almost a kind of space of de-stressing, or we said before, an exploration that allows you to be doing all these things concurrently. And that's the holistic journey. It's not a case of saying, in my day, I've now got to do all these separate things and find time for it, because all that does is creates a time stress, and then the guilt, and the kind of the whatever it is, or the stress and the angst of it all. Instead of just understanding the biggest journeys, all of these things. For me, your breathing improves, your digestion of your food improves, your movement relaxes and becomes more flowing, and your kind of restfulness is, all of that improves as soon as you go on that journey. So that one underpinning journey begins everything and looks after them all at the same time.
I love it. I love that, because I think a lot of people focus on one area, like you said, and then there's a pull on something else, because we're finite, like where we can put our attention, right? So amazing. And what about like sort of your journey in particular? I'm really interested, because there was kind of sort of anxiety from a young age, something that sort of came with you into your career. I'd love to just sort of hear about how that showed up for you. What did that look like for you?
It's something that I find so baffling and so sort of intriguing to reflect upon, just from no age at all, really, just having an accomplice and a colleague in my life that was just pure fear, just a sense of incredible fear and doom that sort of surrounded everything. And as a result, before I even kind of had a chance to, I think, really fully explore too much, I was already trying to control that fear and finding some different, almost kind of mechanisms for keeping it at bay and boxing it. And all those come in such strange ways. It's amazing how many habitual kind of almost kind of, I don't know, behaviors and patterns of behavior and thinking that come from that central force in your life. Instead of getting to know myself, I was already kind of like, I've got something to really to have to deal with here. And some of those were, they automatically look after your life for you. That's the whole thing, is when you create these habits and what have you, they kind of start living your life for you, and you start losing your choice at each step. And people were saying, oh, it's amazing, your dedication, you're able to go out there and kick for 3 hours or 2 hours. Now, kicking for 3 hours after a session was pretty much just pure self-destruction on your body. Really? Imagine the same action over and over again, just destroying your body. And there was no dedication involved. It was compulsion. I had no choice. The most courageous thing I could have done at that stage was face my fears and actually leave the field and say, no, I'm going to sit in the space of unknown and start resting and preparing that way. As it was pure habit, So in a way, I was able to learn and create some sort of skills and behaviors, but very much at the cost of my well-being and my body. And now I'm sort of out of that space. I'm so much more aware of the intelligence of the body already, and working with that to learn skills. So quickly, people talk about 10,000 hours and all those sort of things. The intelligence of the body is already there. Once you give into that, you don't need 10,000 hours. You need to start. Once you start mastering the self, you'd be amazed at how the rest is fine. 10,000 hours is, for me, it's a hugely, if you look at it, my life was mostly about trying to fight against old habit. Now, when you just remove old habit, there's nothing to fight against, and you're already on a journey towards something. You get there so much quicker. And so much of my career, in terms of that fear, was fighting against something. And that was my position in my career. I had to fight against something. I had to. That became my archetype, was to be a warrior, was to be a self-sacrificer, a sufferer on behalf of others. And I needed to be needed by my team. I needed to be needed by people. I needed to be seen as that kind of wounded, whatever it was. So that's just the way it played out. You could see it in so many ways. It's like there was less and less joy after wins and victories. It just became about survival, almost just playing to that role, because as a young kid, I guess I created that sense that that's what life's all about. You get through it doing the right thing in the right place, and at the end, that's good enough to keep the fear at bay. That ultimate fear. And there comes a time when you get a crisis moment where you just realize that kind of behavior and pattern behavior just cannot move beyond a certain situation. And those crises moments for me came up at several points in my life, and they represented the peaks of my mental health, you know, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, what have you, just on the basis that something had to give. And it was only much later on when I realized that actually it was that something giving wasn't giving in and giving up. It was that acceptance wasn't weakness. It wasn't giving in and giving up. It was taking back charge of how I want to live my life and the world I want to create. And it was a movement towards potential. It was a movement towards performance, leadership, into relationships. It wasn't a movement away from your strength and all those kind of things, which often felt like, you know, something you had to fight and survive made you a real person, instead of actually realizing that actually to go into your potential serves everyone. When you fight and survive, it serves you, and it's always against everyone else.
I'm interested in how you kind of framed that. So you were mentioning sort of that extra practice, the extra kicking practice. People saw that as dedication. They were like, right, this is a man who is like completely dedicated to your craft. And then yet you were sort of saying, but was that you kind of coping with, you know, you said like there wasn't a choice, like that was what you were doing. It was harder to walk away from the pitch. Was that movement away from potential, do you think? Was it a movement towards that kind of drive for success that you thought was going to give you everything you wanted, sort of thing?
Definitely. There's in order to find potential, you have to go somewhere new. And that means exploring, and that means allowing the unknown in your life, and not just allowing it, but moving consciously with passion and excitement into it. And when you have a relationship with the unknown, which is you have a passion and excitement for the unknown, it's a beautiful definition of confidence. Whereas the other type of confidence, which comes through controlling, which was the one that I was on, is not so much a confidence as much as safeguarding.
Holding on to what you've already got.
And that was what my process was to, as is always the case when you're in that fearful space of survival, your mind and all your attention goes to what you think the threat is. So your mind starts worst case scenarioing. What if this happens? What if that happens? And your job is to say, okay, well, if that's the worst case scenario, how can I protect myself against that? And if I've managed that, then everything else is a success according to that. So therefore in my head, I'd be like, right, what's the worst case scenario? Well, I miss a kick and we lose the game. Right, so what can I do? The best thing I can do is go out there and kick for 3 hours until I've seen the ball go over so many times that I've safeguarded a guarantee in the unknown. So I've solidified the unknown. And what you end up that does is takes your life away from you. It's like saying you go into a game and someone shows you a video of exactly how it's going to play out, and it's all brilliant. And they show, look at that, that's how it's going to play out. You say, yes, I'm so relieved. And then they say, right, now go play it. And as you're playing it, you're going, I hate this. There's nothing here. There's no life here. There's no passion, because I know everything. There's no growth. And so that unknown is the ultimate force of everything. It's where the potential of the exploration is. And what I spent my life doing was trying to solidify it, get guarantees from it, instead of actually being willing to open up and say, right, prepare me to step into it. I was trying to change the unknown so I didn't have to step into it. And that's a real classic of rugby changing rooms. You see a ton of people walking around trying to operate, trying to guarantee through self-belief, and everyone looks so fragile. Whereas you see a few people in the corner who are prepared through excitement of the unknown, and now you look at some people that are prepared and ready. You look at the posture, it's different. You look at the way they breathe, it's different. You look at how grounded they are, it's different. You look at the smile and the energy and the joy, it's a different feel. You look at the guys in the corner who are beating their chest and pushing each other around, saying, we can do this, we're going to be good, it's going to be, you're like, now you can feel the disconnection there, it's immense. And like you said about controlling, when I got injured, the only thing I thought about was not, oh wow, what does this mean and how can I use this to go forward and be brand new? All I did was think, how can I get back to where I was as soon as I could through stress? And all I did was injure myself more.
And was that physically? How could you get back to where you were physically, like healthy wise in that?
Health wise, and also reputation wise.
Right. Yeah.
The way that people meet expectations, others and my own. How can I get back to where I was? And it's another way of saying that what's been is as good as it can be. and the truth of what can happen, and therefore I need to get back to that if it's good, or I need to get away from it if it's bad. And this was essentially what the situation was me as a young child, was that those emotions I feared through fear, by trying to solve them, I just kept them alive, and they're stored in my body. And so throughout the whole of my life, all I kept doing was triggering those same fears. And it's almost like I went straight back to being a kid again, straight back. So in the change room before a game, the same fears coming up about what if this happens? And it's the same fear I remember from first day at school. It's the same fear I remember from, being told you've got to do a presentation in front of the class. And, it's the same fear I felt at, God, whatever it could be, just, getting something wrong, or not scoring a test, or feeling like I let someone down, whatever it is. And that same fear is just a familiar feeling because it hasn't been allowed to be released through decent understanding practice. What I've done is fight to solve it, and by solving it, I've kept it alive. Because it's like building a wall and saying this wall is a dragon-proof wall. And because I haven't seen any dragons, it must be working. So I better keep building it.
Yeah. That association we create,
it keeps the dragon alive. Yeah,
is inaccurate. Yeah, for sure.
Instead of being willing to stand out there, and obviously there's moments where those threats are very physical and very real. But for all of mine were reputation based on the idea that if this happens, I won't be able to respond. And as a result, I chose not to venture into new space. And so I found out nothing about my ability to respond. Otherwise, another way of saying that is that I stopped becoming responsible for who I am on the inside. And I just, I let the world and others decide that for me.
Amazing. I want to come back to the unknown in a second, because I think that was so nice what you mentioned. But I just, on that sort of physical side, was there ever a point where you were like, yeah, I've kicked enough, I've done enough kicking now that I know that I've done enough? Or was it always, no, I need to do more? Was there a moment? There must have been a moment. No.
But the thing is there's a moment where for each day, you say that's enough, of course, and you go home.
Yeah.
But it's the same concept with everything, in that trying to fulfill the inside from the outside, it just doesn't touch it. It doesn't touch it. Hence, you go to bed that day, and the next morning you wake up, and you might walk in thinking, I kicked well yesterday, I'll be fine. When you go to take your first kick the next day, you start in exactly the same space. You got to do all the reassurance has got to take place all over again. You don't become more reassured. It's like I was essentially a fear machine, and I was trying to feed that machine with reassurance, and thinking that once it had had enough reassurance, it would stop being a fear machine and it would magically transform into a joy machine. What happened was it just grows into a bigger, more powerful fear machine that needs more reassurance. And the same way that more fuel, and it needs more from you, and it starts asking more questions, and it starts saying, well, hold on. Then you get this idea that this is working in your head, because I won a few games and I played quite well. You think, well, this is working. And then you start letting that fear machine start moving into other areas of your life. Now, well, if it's not just about kicking now, let's have a look at other stuff going on in your life. Let's get worried about that, and you just grow that fear machine. I think, that's the same thing I came to when my injuries in the middle of my career was that I realized this, I was told, several times that I might never play again. I realized that, crikey, this could be it. I've got to look back and say, am I going to be satisfied with this? And everything I came to was like, no, of course not. Well, what is going to satisfy me was I need to know that I've been the best I can be, because I can't know what that is. But I need to know that everything I've done has been all of me. And so I started to question, well, what is all of me? Because I suddenly realized that all this suffering and sacrificing had never ended in joy, and it was never going to end in joy. Not at retirement, not when you're on holidays in the summer. You get that brief respite, but then it just kicks back in. It never lasted, and I said, I've got to start looking somewhere else where it does last, because the danger is with the mind is that it goes beyond it's sort of always looking to solve the problem, and it says, well, hold on, if retirement hasn't done it, then I tell you what will make you happy is when you leave your legacy after you've gone.
Yeah.
And now you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because now you're basically saying, I cannot go anywhere until I've died, which is crazy, but it's what you think. People start saying, well, hold on, if I suffer a bit more to leave a legacy, then I'll be happy. It's like, but the legacy is here and now. The legacy is taking full responsibility to say, I can be all of me in every moment. And that's what I came to. That's all that's going to do it, in terms of being able to look back on any experience and say, how do I know it was all of me? And it's like, well, because I'd be fully present. That's it. If I win it or lose it, that makes no difference. I've won and lost enough things. It's just when I'm fully present, you just move on effortlessly to the next one, and there's nothing to work out. And and that effortless moving on is what makes sense of what's been. Whereas I spent so much of my life trying to make sense of what's been so I could move on. What I started to realize was, if I start looking at how I can take charge of how I move on, I automatically make sense of what's been. And that was how I started to find that flow in my life, without those constant stop gaps of having to stop and look back and get everything in order and then move forward step by step. It was like, now we've got a momentum to life, and more joyous kind of engagement.
And so was it injury that, I mean, you had a few injuries. Was there a point where you were like, okay, at this point, I need to start looking for something else. I need to start exploring something else. It was that kind of, was that the moment that you kind of thought, right, I need to start doing something different. I need to.
It was, yes, it was on one hand, and also it kind of coincided with one of my biggest crises moments. And I just realized that, okay, something's got to change, and it has to be me. And that was a big call, and I went down that route for a bit, and I got made some way in it, a little bit through professional help, but it wasn't necessarily the professional help. It was the fact that I realized that I was able to change from something to something else. And the bigger revelation was, hold on, if I can change to this, what's underneath that's constant, that between the change is still there? And that's what I got interested in. It wasn't the fact that, oh, I'm now interested in who I am now. It's, no, I'm interested in who I always am, in which I'm able to be these different things. I want to know what's constant. What's that thing underneath me? What's that thing that's not seeking anything? What's that thing that's resting there silently and just effortlessly allowing, knowing, connected, one? I was like, now hold on. What I've realized is I can change, and I didn't disappear. So there must be something under me which isn't changing. It's like, well, okay, let's
Just losing you a bit, Jonny. I think we may have lost you. We may have lost Jonny there. I think we will hopefully get Jonny back very quickly. This did happen, unfortunately, in the test, so I'm sure Jonny will be back really quickly. That, as I'm sure you guys are thinking at home, is quite fascinating. And I think it would be a wonderful thing to try and explore that constant that Jonny's talking about. I think what we have is, what Jonny's really talking about here a lot is, I think a lot of people get caught up in different roles that we play. We played lots of different roles. For me, brother, friend, well-being coach, musician, footballer, golfer. We have all of these different roles. And underneath that, there's the constant of who we are. And if you've been to any of my mindfulness sessions, you'll probably know what I'm talking about here, but I've referenced it quite a few times, is that constant is constant. That's who you really are. That's the thing that doesn't change. It's the thing that the person that you were when you were 3 years old, 4 years old. Your body's changed. The different roles that you've played in your life have changed. And yet who you are hasn't changed. Now, I wonder, I hope that's kind of what Jonny was referring to. Jonny, you're back. I don't know if you
I'm
caught
back for
any.
that.
I was trying to just, I was just trying to understand, and hopefully, what I was just kind of mentioning is that human beings, we take on lots of different roles, and what I think you were referring to, and the way that I refer to it, is that sort of that constant that you were talking about, that essence of who we really are. When we think about who we were as a 3, 4, 5-year-old child and who we are now, our bodies have changed, so many things have changed, and yet that essence, that knowing of who we are, is constant, and that's the same, and that's the kind of essence of who we are. I don't know if that's kind of what you were referring to. That's kind
Yeah,
of how I summed it up, but
yeah,
I don't know if that's
yeah,
it.
definitely. No, I'd use a sort of an analogy a little bit. Is kind of depending what you're into, you can move this analogy around. I'm not actually I'm not actually that big into to cars. It's not really my thing, but it seems to be a good one that works for some people. For me, as a really young kid, I used to be in a computer game shop when I had like a Spectrum, like a really
Yeah.
old computer. I used to walk into the computer game shop with this, so that's how I'd frame it for me. But it kind of works in a car space. If you're in a big, like imagine an infinite car garage, and there's all these, just an infinite number of different options of these cars that, and you've got enough money in your pockets to buy anything in there that you want. And that feeling of like, oh my God, anything's possible, and
Mm,
I could be anything. And you're looking around each car, and there's just too many to look at, and eventually you say, right, that's it, I've made my choice, that's what I'm going for.
mm,
And you get in it, and you turn the engine on, you're like, whoa, and you're driving out the garage. But as you're driving out, you can't help but envy the person walking in who's going to start selecting. And it's the idea that the undecided potential of who we really are, it can't live in this world on a physical level. You can't have it and say, I'm as it now. There's a knowing of it. It's not a sensory thing, because the senses belong to the car. When the
mm,
car drives out the garage onto the streets, that car starts to feel and see and taste. That's all part of the physical world, but there's a deeper knowing that actually the beauty of it is you can frame this a couple of ways. One is that you never actually leave the garage. You only test drive those cars.
mm,
You're never anything but that undecided potential, no matter how much you commit. And the other way of looking at it is that as soon as you spend your money, your pockets fill back up.
mm,
You can keep making new choices, and that car represents who you want to be.
mm,
And the issue being is that when we get caught with those old emotions that are stored, those old emotions tell us a truth. When I was younger, I had this fear, and this fear, and my reaction to that fear, that reaction that's stored in me, is telling me a truth, which is holding me to the car I've chosen.
mm,
I was forced into that car through a feeling that I didn't recognize. And until I release that feeling, you're kind of still stuck in that car. And everything you try and do in a coping way is almost kind of like trying to repaint your car, trying to
mm.
fix up the engine a bit,
Tweaking
trying to
it,
add
yeah.
add a bigger wheels, maybe put a spoiler
Mm,
on it,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
this. But when you're sat in the car, it's the
Mm,
experience of the car. It's the old car. It's a car that you look at and you want it to be different. And you look at other cars and it doesn't match up. It feels out of date. It feels like it doesn't belong. And
mm,
it's that journey of just, it's the old emotions that are still hanging around from previous traumas, or the old ideas that have been built up and influenced by society or learned at key moments in your developmental stages. It's those that trap us into feeling like this car is who I am, and it
mm,
removes us from the car garage where you're like, I'm everything, I'm
mm,
all things, and in that car garage is everyone else
mm,
also looking. In other words, we're all in that car garage looking at who we want to be. But as soon as we go out on the roads, we're all comparing who's got what, and who does
mm,
this, and who's this, and who fits. And we're all trying to get back to that garage
mm,
through that car, instead of just letting that car go and saying, yeah, it was great, it doesn't work anymore.
mm,
And it's not so much a kind of 5-year plan as I'm going to move every 5 years. It's a moment to moment thing.
mm,
You
mm,
be who you want to be right now, according to setting that internal environment. That means I am, this is my state of being, which determines how I see things, which determines how I feel about things, which determines what I do about things, which determines what I create. And you come back to that being and start again, brand new and fresh, instead of what you create then feeds back into your worth as a being. And then you allow that to determine how you see things, and then what you create. And so the outcome just starts to tell you who you are, instead of realizing we can just keep starting again, and acceptance and meditation and letting go and coming into the now and yoga and all these amazing practices, surrender, they're all to do with it's returning to that open state of non-physical. So I'm ageless. I'm not in this physical existence. I'm not a material being trying to fight other material beings and gather more to make me bigger and stronger and better than others. You know, it's all a process of gathering reputation and worth and wealth and, you know, all these kind of things, followers and all this kind of stuff. Now, instead of being the non-physical, which is already infinite, the physical happens within that. So when you return to that bigger you, now you can start to, like you were saying, play with the roles, not just the roles of who I want to be, but you can start to have a healing presence upon your body, because the body happens within the greater presence of who I really am. But when we think that who we are is a little thing inside the body, trying to do anything with your body, you know, you're trying to fight things, and it's always the message, I'm trying to fight this disease. I'm trying to get through this, instead of coming to that space of, and I, like I said before, when I was in that injury space for 4 years, I allowed for no healing to take place because I was so busy in survival mode.
Yeah.
That all my energy was on fight or flight. And when you're on that, when you're in survival mode, healing is quite a long way down the list.
Yeah.
Once you've put the fire out in the house, once you've kind of fended everything off, healing's right down there. And I never got that far down the list because that fear emotion was still in me saying there's something else. And every time I sat down and got comfortable, that's what triggered it. And it ended up being that fearful emotion in me became so much who I am that I started to, without knowing it, trigger it deliberately in order to feel who I am.
In order
so I
to
didn't
have
know
a fire to put out.
Yeah, exactly, because I don't know who I am until I've got some fear or a problem. So my mum used to, you know, gave me a cartoon strip once that was Charlie Brown one. It was Charlie Brown walking along saying, "Oh, you know, what a great day! It's beautiful. I've got absolutely nothing to worry about." And the next square was, "Geez, that's a worry." And you're like, "That's it. That was me growing up." And it's a nice way of looking at it, but that's the point. It isn't. It's that these things are kind of so familiar, and they've become so much who we are, is that we don't realize that we almost need them to be who we think we are.
And I suppose just to bring this, like, just what was coming to me as you were saying that was turning pages. I like the idea that there's always a new page. There's always a new page, and that kind of essence of who you are being the garage where you can test drive any of these cars. And I think for some people listening, it might sound difficult because this isn't perhaps how we grow up, and these aren't perhaps the messages that we have, and we build our beliefs and we build our thought patterns that they happen automatically. We're not in control of, and that's what I just wanted to get over to people, is we're not in control of these beliefs that we have, and these you know, the idea that we think we're the car. We haven't done that consciously. It's not a decision we've taken. I don't know, do you have anything to say on that, and how I don't know, like how we kind of grow up into this system, which actually maybe isn't particularly healthy for our being?
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, from my perspective, it's the unconscious freedom you were talking about as a 2 or 3, 4-year-old child. It's a beautiful freedom. And you look at the way that children do go from car to car, keeping that analogy alive. Another analogy we use is shirt to shirt. You know, they wear, you know, I've got a young daughter, and she puts an Elsa dress on from Frozen, and she's Elsa. She's not her trying to be Elsa. She's Elsa. And then she takes it off and puts the Anna dress on. We've gone down that route. We're supporting Disney very heavily. But she's got the Anna dress on. She puts the Anna dress on, and now she's Anna. She hasn't become Elsa, who's now trying to be Anna. She's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
her trying to be up. She is just on it, because there isn't that sort of founding understanding that this is who I am, and now I'm
Mm.
trying to be someone else. You can just,
Attachment,
they're
is
just
that a
doing
good
what it,
word?
yeah, yeah, like an attachment to, or an entanglement with,
Mm,
with who I think I am.
mm,
So, but because that freedom is unconscious, it does get tangled up,
mm,
because there isn't, like you said, there isn't that choice about it. And whether that entanglement is it begins so young, it's ridiculous,
mm,
or even, whatever age it is, or whatever happens. For me anyway, I'm just speaking about my own perspective. I don't know, I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone else at all, but the point being is that that kind of needs to happen
mm,
in order for the process of becoming free has to be a conscious one. So
mm,
you need to become unconsciously limited or
mm,
held, so that you can consciously remove yourself, which means the freedom you get, the freedom that is realized, is now a conscious one, as opposed to the unconscious child. Now
mm,
you're in a conscious space of freedom, and that's real empowerment. That's the difference. And so as a child, you're free, but unless
mm,
you go through a process of actually becoming limited, you
mm.
can't then consciously experience that freedom, if you know what I mean.
So is it like, so let's just use the car again. I'm like, I have to know that I'm driving the car. I have to know that I think that I am the car to be able to to leave that car, go
Yeah,
back to the garage
yeah,
and go, right, now I can appreciate the beauty of choosing whichever car I want, driving it for
absolutely.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I've let go of that. It's almost like a process of like having that experience, which is limited, as you said, and then consciously exploring that and stepping away from it, and then still appreciating that that's something still is going on at times, and you're
Yeah,
not going to kind of lose it all the time, but then being open to all the other options. I don't know.
yeah,
Does that make
yeah,
sense?
absolutely. Yeah, it's there has to be, which is why for me the process that is awareness,
Mm,
and then there has to be um, the conscious acceptance,
mm,
which leads to the space of potential, or I would call it kind of responsibility, the ability to choose how you respond. And when I say respond, ultimately, what I see it is that life really only has one one step in it. There's only one step we ever take in life. It's the next step.
mm, mm,
You don't you have We haven't taken a load of steps. You just take your next step. When you become fully responsible for that next step, that's potential. But the awareness and the acceptance part is so needs to be so conscious, and that's kind of almost like when you're stressed in life, being able to recognize your stress in real time, rather than rather than at the end of the day be like, oh, I've been stressed today. But
mm,
actually, when it's happening, come to that awareness of being like, right, I can see these familiar patterns. This feeling I've got, I recognize it. It's been with me so long in my life. And to start recognizing that actually the thoughts that are inspired by that feeling, or the thoughts that are trying to bring up that feeling, whichever beginning sort of place of the loop it is, whether it's the thought inspiring the feeling or the feeling inspiring the thought, you start to be able to distance yourself from it, to be able to
mm,
recognize it, to say, okay, this isn't, if I'm not in it, the feeling and the thinking kind of gives you your personal reality. But when you're able to step outside of that, to be able to work with it, you start to move out of a personal reality, and then be able to start to create that internal environment where you can start to create your personal reality a little bit more. And it's that distancing has to be done consciously. And
mm,
it's that conscious choice that then
mm,
empowers you to be able to take control, and that freedom then belongs to you, rather than it being given to you, but
mm,
you don't know what it is or where it is, and it's not there anymore, or it's
mm,
starting to ebb away. Now when you own it, you're kind of like, right now. And when I look at my rugby career, and you say, well, what were you like at your very best, and those handful of moments where you, my God, I felt like I ruled the world in that
mm,
one moment. If I describe how I was in that moment, I'd say I'm I'm incredibly light. I'm effortless. I'm
mm,
just I'm I'm just flowing. I'm
mm,
I'm weightless. I feel like I'm not even there. I'm just controlling things. I just feel like I'm just connected
Is it
to
like
everyone,
autopilot, kind of
just
an
beautifully,
autopilot?
yeah, but beautifully engaged. But just
Mm,
you
mm,
feel like
mm, mm,
you're just pulling strings around and just kind of making things happen.
mm,
Um, and it's that's the kind of the the space that comes with that connection between being in the car garage at the same time as being in the car.
mm,
It's
mm.
the two coming together that leave you in a space of being the creator of your experience rather than being one or the other. So it's almost like, right, hold on, I'm going to go home and sit with my eyes closed and do this work, and I kind of feel a bit much freer when I'm doing that. But as soon as I open my eyes, I'm now into this world. It's starting
Mm,
to blend the two together, that you start to have that ability to be, almost like I'd say, in those moments of being in the zone on the sporting field, you're so restful
mm,
but yet so active. You kind of completely destroy all paradoxes when you're in that space. You're so kind of you're so intent and meaningful and purposeful, and yet you're so relaxed and open about it. You can be both of those, because you can be that space of, I know who I am, which allows me to go fully into this role, if you like.
mm.
And it's that, yeah, like I said, it's only it's a handful of things, glimpses,
Yeah,
but those are the ones that have inspired my journey, not the ones where I've held up a trophy. It's not those feelings that have made me think this is where the future is. Those
yeah.
feelings are the ones that's definitely where the future's not.
And you've mentioned in the past before, like when you were playing, there was no problems when you were playing, when you were in that. Is that right? So when you were in that, and that wasn't where there was problem, because you're in that relaxed state, you're in that sort of relaxed and concentrated state. It is a place of paradoxes, isn't it? And which is, I think, sometimes the mind struggles with, because it's like, well, it's got to be one or the other, right? It can't be both. But that state, which is that flowing state, which is so, I don't know, selfless almost.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and then away from the sport, that's where you had the challenges. Um, so was that
Yeah.
something when you started to explore, and when you started to take those steps, those conscious steps, as you mentioned, that conscious choice, was that something that you noticed straight away, that like, okay, that is where I'm like feel free, and it's where I'm not on feeling that's where something else is going on?
A lot of I've had people ask me, when I sort of speak a little bit like this, people ask me, right, well, what if you went back and played now as with this kind of energy or
Mm,
mindset?
mm.
And I'm sort of saying, but that's the thing, is that's exactly how I did play.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just for the uh, probably 80% of the rest of the actual game,
Mm,
and the entire of the rest of the week I spent doing the opposite, thinking
mm.
that I would earn that freedom by suffering.
Through the practices, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm,
Through I mean, the thing is that the practice was important, but
mm,
how I practiced was actually up to me. But I
mm,
practiced stress, I practiced suffering,
mm,
I everything was under that space of suffering. Whereas understanding essentially that what I wanted to be in the game was that open, free, allowing, and alert, and just aware, and fulfilled. If you want fulfillment in your life, to create fulfillment, you got to have it.
mm,
Otherwise, you can't create it. You
mm,
can't, you can't match that ingredients of fear and worry and angst and suffering. You can't put those together and make fulfillment.
mm,
You just bring out fulfillment. So the point being is that whatever your preparation is to be the change you want to see on the field. So the whole idea of a week's preparation, like we do this with kickers, is to say, right, you're going to go and hit a kick, and I want you to be, we want something, we want to just see what you're capable of. So what we're going to do is just completely liberate ourselves, and then go and hit. And whenever that kick's hit, it's like, oh my God, where's that come from?
mm.
I was like, okay, right, great. We did that in 2 minutes. Now go take the rest of the week. And then at the end of the week, imagine what you could do then. And at
Yeah,
the end of the week, you come back and like this.
yeah.
Like,
Tension.
well, hold on, what are you doing
Yeah,
with your time?
yeah.
Because great preparation is liberation, because that's when we feel at our best, we feel liberated. So what are we doing to feel liberated? And it's almost like we've got caught thinking that almost like an exam type of thing is that
Mm,
uh, the more stressed I get, the more I'm going to earn that genius. And that was
mm,
what I was practicing. I was essentially revising biology for a French exam.
Mm.
So what I
Yeah.
said to myself was, I've got to
Yeah.
start revising. I've got to start revising the topic.
And the more the better. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I said, right, well, hold on. If I want to be free in the moment on the field, what I want to do, what I've got to do is be free in every moment and consciously understand that's my preparation. And so it wasn't about winning arguments, being seen as a leader in team meetings, and doing great interviews and being humble on the TV and all these things that I thought were like, that's earning me the right to go out there and succeed. Simply, right now, am I deciding my own fulfillment so that I can then start to create and inspire fulfillment? Am I joyful so that I can inspire joy? Am I in that space of spontaneity so I can create these amazing intuitive moments? And I was doing the opposite. I was doing everything I could to turn up at the game tired, stressed, tense, fearful. That
We're losing again. I think we might have lost Jonny again. What was coming to me there as we wait for Jonny, hopefully coming back again, is that the intuitive, I really picked up on that word intuitive, where using sport as the metaphor here, but also I want to kind of delve into the unknown and uncertainty as well, because a lot of people, especially now, we're uncertain about the future, and what we try to do is manage all of those things that we can manage as if it's going to give us some more certainty about the future, when that intuitive space, that problem solving space, that creative space, that space of potential perhaps is actually in the moment and happens, is very natural. It's very natural for human beings. We've been evolving for billions of years to be in this, at this point, to have, you know, physically the body that we have, but also psychologically the ability to meet unique and novel situations and deal with them and flourish and problem solve, you know, and to find solutions. Like Jonny coming in and out,
sorry,
I'm
mate.
trying to fill the
Yeah,
space, and I'm like, okay, well, I was just saying, like, I wanted to come up into that intuition, and I think I was just saying, like, I think for me, it sounds like you were doing everything to manage how things were going to happen on the pitch. And this is relative to life as well. And I think a lot of people do this when actually trusting the fact that you can do it, whether you prepare or not, with the creative resources that we have as human beings, moment to moment. If you can trust that, that's more powerful than any practice, any preparation you can do. I don't know if that was kind of where you were
yeah.
going, or
I think the point of it being is that when, for me, and it's still it's like it's not a linear journey. It's not, okay, I've done the acceptance, the awareness, I've done the acceptance, and now I'm living this way. You're constantly in the mold of constantly becoming aware of where limits are, constantly accepting them, and then constantly working on the responsibility. But with more and more of the acceptance, as more and more of those old emotions are released and stop holding you in survival mode, whatever it is, whether it's your anger or your frustration or your bitterness and resentment, or whether it's your fear and your anxiety or whatever, when they start being released, you get more of your imagination back. Because otherwise your kind of familiar past becomes a predictable future, even in your mind and your thinking, just habits and patterns. But when you clear the past and it just starts becoming open memory instead of a fixed truth, it just becomes an open, like the car garage. You're back in the car garage with your memory now. You then get your imagination back. And when you get your imagination back, you start being able to, in real detail, picture what it is you want, instead of being drawn towards what you don't want and what shouldn't be. And you're not stuck with these predictable ideas of what should be in life and how things should come about, because you haven't got that fixed understanding of life telling you, you know, this is how I am and how it was, therefore this is who I will be and how it should be. And when you get your imagination back, you're able to visually and clearly find what it is you want, the image, but also more importantly, you then visualize it taking place, and you trigger the gratitude and the empowerment and the fulfillment of it already taking place.
Mm.
And that's the difference. Then you bring that future state, that ideal future state, you bring that back here now.
Mm-hmm.
And the world that I lived in was that I'll get that future state when I've got the outside's permission. When I've won the trophy, I'll be a winner, and then I'll play like a winner. The problem being there'll be no more games to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to play my whole life like not quite a winner to become a winner, instead of playing like a winner now and allowing the win to come to you, which is why it all feels effortless when you're in that fulfilled state. And that's essentially the change, is that when you're talking about that trust, is that you realize that when you're in that fulfilled energy state, everything that's around you is part of the plan. And it's not a faith or a belief, because the belief takes place when you're not in the fulfilled state. Because when you're in the fulfilled state, you're not looking for it, you don't need it. And when you don't look for it and need it, that's where the trust is. And that's why it's so important. The preparation is about becoming fulfilled now, not because, oh, I'll make sure I'm preparing, I'll do all the things I need to do to make me feel fulfilled, but being able to sit in a quiet room and find fulfillment within yourself. And it's that then creates the saying, like we were talking about before, whatever you want to create, you have to have it. If you want to pass something on to people in your family, you have to have it to pass on, because if you don't have it, you're passing on something else. I'm really aware of this with my family. I want them to have such an amazing life, but it's like, but if I've got to have one myself to pass that on, I can't work on someone else. I've got to keep exploring me, and all the answers for everything I want, all the transformation I want around me, will come from that transformation within me.
That's really profound, because we get a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions previously as well for this session, like, how do I support other people? How do I help people in my family? And I think that's so resonant that it's like, I often say, look, focus on yourself, focus on yourself, and understand things better for yourself, and look after yourself essentially, and then you're able to give the best version of yourself to other people.
Definitely. Yeah.
In terms of, and then something came to my mind, I don't want to lose it. Like when you mentioned that sort of imagination comes back, you can experience the things that you want to have in this moment. And then what just came to my mind was the next step. And I just felt like when you have that trust, the next step just makes logical sense. It's the next thing to do. I don't know if that's how you see it. How would you say it any way different?
Yeah, it's a bit like if you're walking, and from a physical perspective, if you really focus and you create the perfect posture to take that next step, it automatically balances out the last step. No matter how unbalanced the step before is, when you put all your attention on how you're going to land and how you're going to feel and how you're going to support your body in perfect alignment, you're able to make total sense and balance out the last step. And it's almost taking that physical to an emotional level, to be emotionally unfulfilled. And that's what you mean about taking the next step. You take it physically, mentally, and emotionally. Mentally, with the intention of clear visualization of what it is you want to happen in your life. Emotionally, with already the feelings of it having happened, fulfilled, so that you don't need it, you're creating it. You don't need it to be, you're being it already. And then the physical of aligning your body, so working on your breathing and your strength and your flexibility and your posture and everything that goes with it, your nutrition and supporting all those things is what we're talking about, that holistic step. But it all begins with that space of fulfillment, because when you're in that space of fulfillment, everything makes sense. You just have to say, look, when you're at your absolute best, how great are your relationships? And how much do you just know what to say to people? And how do you start to just, in your performance, you just do what's needed, and in your leadership, you're just so clear and direct. But that's intuition that comes out of a state of fulfillment. The whatever comes out of a state of lack is what you feel you need the most. Yeah, it's like I heard someone say this before. Are you still there? Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, I think we might be
Yeah,
losing
you got
you
you.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
got you. You
yeah,
got
go for it.
it. Yeah, when you're in that state of
Yeah.
lack, I heard someone say this before, that you want the secret to life, but if you're sat there with and you really need the toilet, and someone comes along with the answer to the secret of life, you're just going to be like, no, where's the nearest toilet? Just get me
No
to the
thanks.
toilet.
Have you got
Yeah, but I'll take a
That's a
toilet.
brilliant example.
But it's the
I haven't
point
heard
being,
that before.
but when you're in the state of I'm fulfilled, then you can start putting your attention on what really matters. But until we're fulfilled, the
Mm,
attention is just going to go on what we think we need, and that's what I've done
mm,
so much of my life, and still find myself in certain situations just put my attention on what I'm missing, instead of
mm,
looking after that, trying to, or practicing to look after that myself, so that my attention can start to go to places I've never been before, which is
mm,
intuition, inspiration, healing,
mm,
health, well-being, love, compassion, connections, feel just that absolute, deeper sense of what it is to be alive.
mm. And that's interesting you say that, because we don't, generally speaking, the conversation around mental health, in my view, doesn't focus on those things. It focuses on the challenges people are having, the anxiety, the depression, instead of focusing on the compassion, the love, the the joys, what is well-being, what is that state that you can have at any moment, which is really, really
I think a
interesting.
lot with a lot of people in mental health, like I said, my life has been around that, but I refer to it more as crises moments.
Yeah.
But when people are in crises moments, it's such a big space to be in for people, and it's so
Mm,
challenging. And
mm,
through that challenge can come real change. And
mm,
and people that are suffering the most hold such a big key to self transformation, but
mm,
everyone needs support to go through it. And that's why it's so key to recognize two things: just be there, because these
mm,
people are serving the whole. When someone meets a crisis and they're willing to go find a way through it, they're serving everyone with that inner transformation. So everyone benefits when someone is willing. And it's also the most courageous step you can go to, is when you're in that space of, I'm really blocked, to say, I'm going to do everything which feels weak and vulnerable and what have you. I'm going to do it in the name of potential. Therefore, it's
mm,
not weak vulnerability. It's vulnerability, but it's not weakness or giving in.
mm,
It's the most courageous step someone says. And what's even more courageous about it is that self transformation is going beyond limits, which open the opportunity for a better experience of life and planet and world for all of us. And so the mental health thing, there does need to be that, of course, that huge support at the beginning
mm,
to conjure up this readiness to go again to the next step. But there just needs to be the message with the mental health that, yes, that there's that stuff, but actually this is where it goes into an infinite experience of life. This is the
mm,
crisis moment where you kind of have got no choice but to get out of your own way.
mm,
And somehow, and there's no words can describe how tough it is for everyone. There's no comparison can be made. Each individual has their own enormous challenge. If challenge was the way we wanted it, it wouldn't be challenge. It has to come in that form, and COVID has brought that form on, because for so many people, that the more people are willing to take that space and take on that calling, it's happening for everyone. I think we're all feeling the anxiety that's around, and we're all doing our own little bit to that calling, to say, well, hold on, if I find responsibility for who and how I am on the inside, then we're all going to make this whole thing, a shift in the direction of something, of greater opportunity in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jonny. That is, I think, a beautiful place to end. Thank you so much for your time. I want to just make sure that we're finishing on. So I could have spoken to you all day. I swear, there was so many other topics that we didn't even get onto, but and questions as well. So, Jonny, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else has really, really appreciated it. It's so interesting hearing your insights on this and sharing some of that. I want to rewatch this again. I'm sure there's loads for me to learn as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everybody who has watched. What you've got is In the handout section, you've got all of the sessions for May that you want to, if you want to jump into mindfulness sessions with me or HIIT sessions, yoga, Pilates, there's all sorts of stuff in there, so please do have a look. But thank you for joining us. Jonny, thank you so much again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Real
I've
pleasure.
loved it.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, thank you so much. And everybody, take care, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.